On a quiet morning in California, traffic on a busy highway suddenly slowed as drivers craned their necks to catch a glimpse of something unusual. It wasn't a flashy supercar or a roaring motorcycle. It was a sleek electric vehicle gliding effortlessly down the road, silent, smooth, and without the faintest sign of charging cables or fuel tanks. At first glance, it looked like just another EV. But to those who knew the story, this was something far more extraordinary. This was the car that experts had dismissed, laughed at, and labeled as impossible. Months earlier, a team of African engineers had announced they were building a self-powered vehicle, one that could generate its own energy on the move without stopping for fuel or plugging into the grid. The response from critics was immediate and brutal. Perpetual motion doesn't exist. The laws of physics won't allow it. It's a scam. The harsh words echoed across boardrooms and online forums, with even seasoned investors pulling back in doubt. Yet, behind the scenes, the team pressed forward, confident in their design and unwilling to let disbelief define their future. And now, here it was, rolling down an American highway for the first time. The car moved steadily, powered by an unseen innovation nestled deep within its core. Passers-by pointed in astonishment as news crews scrambled to capture footage. The vehicle didn't just move, it seemed alive, endlessly feeding itself with the energy it required, a direct challenge to everything automakers had insisted was impossible. Inside the car sat an American businessman, one of the first outsiders granted the chance to drive it. He had flown thousands of miles to Africa, skeptically testing the prototype before agreeing to bring it across the ocean. Now, with cameras trailing and skeptics watching, his hands tightened on the steering wheel as he guided the car through traffic. Every mile he drove added pressure, not just on him, but on industries that had long thrived on fuel and dependency. Reporters later described the scene as surreal. Tesla drivers pulled alongside, staring in disbelief. Mechanics and engineers who had doubted its existence watched live streams, whispering to themselves, "How is it possible?" Even government officials tuned in, considering what it might mean if such a vehicle reached mass production. For decades, the idea of a car that never needed gas or charging had been brushed aside as fantasy. And yet, there it was, undeniable, moving down the highway with the calm confidence of a machine built to rewrite the rules. The businessman, meanwhile, was beginning to realize the weight of what he was experiencing. Each second behind the wheel was history being written, and he could almost feel the ground shifting beneath him. Competitors would soon scramble to copy it. Oil companies would rage against it. Energy giants would be forced to rethink their models. But at that moment, what mattered most was simple: the car worked. It worked exactly as the African engineers had promised. The highway hummed with stunned silence as the car continued forward, and yet, this was only the beginning of the story. Because what happened next would prove even more impossible to ignore. As the self-powered car moved farther down the highway, the American businessman began to notice something peculiar. The dashboard indicators, normally ticking down mile after mile in traditional EVs, weren't dropping at all. In fact, the range meter wasn't just holding steady, it was climbing. Every turn of the wheels seemed to feed the vehicle rather than drain it, and the display readouts glowed with numbers that didn't make sense by conventional engineering standards. He tapped the screen, thinking it might be a glitch, but the system was certain. The car wasn't losing energy, it was generating it as it drove. Behind him, traffic had become a rolling parade. Cars slowed, horns beeped, and phones rose into the air as drivers recorded what they were witnessing. Social media platforms lit up in real time with clips of the strange vehicle gliding forward, hashtags exploding across Twitter and TikTok. Within minutes, the video feeds reached newsrooms and corporate offices across the country. Analysts stared at the screens in disbelief, while automakers demanded engineers explain how such a thing could even be possible. The businessman could feel the weight of countless eyes watching his every move. And then, as if the situation weren't already extraordinary, the unexpected happened. A convoy of vehicles bearing the logo of a major American automaker began trailing behind, cameras mounted on their dashboards. They weren't there for a joyride. They were there to document, to scrutinize, and perhaps to prepare for what they knew could be the biggest disruption in automotive history. It wasn't just curiosity, it was a recognition of threat. If this African invention proved to be legitimate on American roads, it wouldn't just challenge Tesla or GM, It would shake the foundation of the entire global energy economy. The businessman's phone buzzed. Messages poured in from reporters, investors, and even government agencies demanding answers. Is it real? Can it be scaled? What powers it? His hands gripped the wheel tighter as he realized the car beneath him wasn't just a machine, it was a revolution in motion. A revolution so many had said would fail. And yet here he was, speeding past every doubt, every criticism, every so-called law of limitation. And as the sun dipped lower on the horizon, casting a golden glow across the highway, something about the drive felt symbolic. It wasn't just a test. It was proof that the world's next chapter in transportation wasn't going to be written in Silicon Valley or Detroit, it was coming from Africa. But the real shock was only moments away. Because as he approached the next exit, a group of officials was waiting, eager to confront the impossible machine that was now rewriting history before their very eyes. As the businessman slowed the vehicle and steered toward the exit, his heart pounded. Dozens of flashing lights lined the roadside. Police cruisers, media vans, even a few unmarked black SUVs that gave off an air of quiet authority. News cameras zoomed in, their lenses following every inch of the car's movement as if they were witnessing the moon landing all over again. The businessman eased the car to a halt, the soft hum of the engine, or rather, the absence of one, leaving a haunting silence in the air. Reporters rushed forward, shouting questions that blurred together in the chaos. What powers it? Is it nuclear? Is it safe? He barely had time to process when a stern-faced official in a dark suit stepped up to the window, signaling him to lower it. "You'll have to step out of the vehicle, sir," the man said firmly, his badge glinting under the fading sunlight. The businessman hesitated, glancing at the car's dashboard one last time. The energy meter was still climbing, steadily, impossibly, like the machine was feeding on the very laws of physics. When he stepped out, microphones and cameras swarmed him, but the official raised his hand to keep the crowd back. A small team of engineers, clearly assembled in haste, approached with scanning equipment. They circled the vehicle, attaching sensors, running their devices over the coils and panels embedded in its sleek design. Their faces revealed everything: the raised eyebrows, the stunned silence, the whispered exchanges. They weren't finding flaws. They were finding proof. One of them, a gray-haired engineer from Detroit known for his skepticism, pulled the official aside. His voice, though quiet, was caught by a nearby boom. "MIC, if this works the way it appears to, every gas station in America could be obsolete in 10 years. Every charging station too." The crowd erupted. The word spread like wildfire. Headlines drafted themselves in real time: Africa's self-powered EV threatens global energy market. The businessman watched as the story spun out of his control, realizing that this wasn't just a test drive anymore, it was the spark of a worldwide reckoning. And then, as the tension peaked, the car itself answered the world's questions in the most dramatic way possible. With no driver inside, it powered up on its own, headlights flaring as if the machine was alive. The engineers stumbled back. Reporters screamed. The official shouted for control. The car rolled forward silently, as though it had a mind of its own, daring the world to chase it, daring the skeptics to deny it. The car glided forward, slow at first, then picking up speed as if it were answering only to its own design. Panic rippled through the crowd. Police scrambled to block the exit, but the vehicle swerved effortlessly, almost anticipating every move before it happened. Cameras kept rolling, live broadcasts streaming across the nation, every household now tuned in to what felt less like a test drive and more like the unveiling of a secret the world wasn't supposed to see. The businessman pushed through the chaos, shouting for them not to touch it. This was no runaway machine, it was proof that a new age had arrived. Yet his voice was drowned out by sirens and shouts, the sound of authority colliding with curiosity. The car rolled onto the highway again, this time without a driver, and traffic halted as if the world itself was holding its breath. Every sensor and every coil within its frame seemed to hum louder than ever, drawing power from the air, from the road, from some invisible force no one could yet explain. Spectators filmed from overpasses, their videos instantly going viral under hashtags like #ImpossibleCar and #PowerFromNowhere. Meanwhile, inside one of the black SUVs, two men in suits were already on the phone with Washington. Their words were clipped and urgent. It's real. We need immediate containment before this slips beyond control. But containment was already impossible. The genie was out of the bottle, and the world had seen it. The businessman, caught between the frenzy of reporters and the cold stare of officials, realized something critical. This car wasn't just a machine anymore, it was a target. And whoever controlled it could reshape global power itself. He turned toward the cameras, his voice steady despite the chaos. "This invention belongs to Africa," he declared. "It was built for the world, not to be locked away." The statement ignited cheers from bystanders and sent shockwaves through newsrooms. But it also painted a target squarely on his back. As the self-powered EV disappeared into the horizon, running without a driver, without fuel, and without limits, one question echoed louder than all the rest. Who would reach it first? The people who wanted to free the technology, or the powers determined to bury it? The highway stretched ahead like a stage, and the driverless EV became its lone performer. Every mile it traveled deepened the silence of those watching, as though the world itself understood the significance of what was unfolding. Drones appeared in the sky, dispatched by news outlets and government agencies alike, their cameras chasing the car's every move. The businessman could see the footage streaming on reporters' monitors nearby, the EV gliding without hesitation, as though guided by something unseen. Then came the inevitable. A convoy of black vehicles accelerated onto the highway, forming a blockade ahead. Authorities weren't about to let this machine slip out of their grasp. The world's oil giants, the automakers, the energy lobbies, all their interests trembled in this single moment. If this technology spread, their power would evaporate. The businessman clenched his fists, realizing that the invention's African creators had trusted him to introduce it to the world, not to let it be captured and dissected in some hidden lab. He pushed past the crowd, demanding a phone, demanding a line to the team back home. But before he could connect, the EV itself seemed to respond. Just yards from the blockade, it slowed, its lights flickering with an eerie intelligence, and then, without warning, it surged upward. Not into the sky, but into the breakdown lane, slipping past the line of SUVs with impossible agility. Gasps filled the air. The impossible had happened again. The car wasn't just self-powered, it was adapting, thinking, surviving. The businessman's phone finally rang. A familiar voice came through, one of the young African engineers who had helped design the coil. His words were urgent, almost fearful. "They're going to try to take it. You must protect it. That car is more than a vehicle, it's a message. If they silence it, they silence us." The businessman's pulse quickened. He glanced back at the road, where the EV was now miles ahead, pursued by helicopters, cameras, and flashing lights. It wasn't just a test drive anymore. It was a chase, a battle of ideals broadcast to millions. And as he realized the world was choosing sides in real time, between progress and control, between liberation and suppression, one truth burned in his mind. If this car fell into the wrong hands tonight, the future of free energy might vanish before it even began. The businessman's breath grew heavy as he listened to the engineer's voice tremble through the line. "They'll try to bury us," the engineer said. "If they control this, the dream dies." The words echoed in his mind, louder than the sirens, louder than the chaos. This wasn't just about a car anymore. It was about freedom, about the right of an entire continent to bring its genius to the world without being stripped bare by those who thrived on domination. Ahead on the highway, the EV tore through the night, its headlights cutting a path of defiance as helicopters trailed like vultures. The authorities had escalated. The convoy of SUVs was growing, joined by armored vehicles that hinted at desperation rather than control. And yet, the car didn't falter. It glided as if the earth itself fed its momentum, every turn sharper, every maneuver smarter, like it knew the stakes better than anyone chasing it. The businessman, heart pounding, climbed into his own vehicle with a handful of journalists clinging to the moment. He shouted for them to keep filming, to broadcast everything live. "Let the people see it all," he urged. If the world was watching, then burying the truth would be far harder. The chase pushed toward the edge of the city, where glass towers gave way to open plains. Crowds were already gathering along the roadsides, waving, cheering, filming on their phones. They weren't afraid of the car, they were inspired by it. This was no longer an experiment. It had become a movement, rolling forward with the weight of millions behind it. Inside one of the black SUVs, a voice barked through a secure radio. "Disable it. Now." A technician flipped open a laptop, typing furiously, launching waves of interference. But the EV responded in kind. Sparks of unseen energy pulsed through its frame, the signal.